I'm Aaron Meyer, and this is the 19.9 Podcast. Tonight, we have Dave Hartley. He's the bass player in The War on Drugs, one of the most popular and well-received bands of this generation. They have a Grammy and are about to embark on a world tour. Dave's also hoops junkie, who can be found on the sidelines of Sixers games and playing pickup hoops with his bandmates.
We got asked to ring the bell before a Sixers game. Pre-game thing for the Sixers is like this really dramatic thing, and they roll out this like Liberty Bell. I was there when like Meek Mill rang the bell. He had just gotten straight out of jail and came straight to the game. He didn't go home. He just got out of prison and just came straight to the game. And then he rang the bell. And then
we also take some time to talk to Dave about how he spent his adult life as a professional musician, releasing records as a solo artist under the moniker Nightlands, and as the bass player for one of the biggest bands on the planet.
I think it might have been John Oates from Hall & Oates once said that he was like, I'm simultaneously the most underrated and overrated musician.
It's time to start the show. Let's get right into it. I've got Dave Hartley on the 19.9 Podcast. Dave, thanks so much for talking to me tonight.
Pleasure to be here.
I want to start out just talking about basketball origin story. So did you play growing up, or who were your favorite teams? How'd you get into basketball?
I loved basketball as a kid. I was one of those kids who was super tall early, and so I kind of got pushed. For me, like being tall was like a little bit traumatic. Like I was definitely the kid who was like, "Hey, come on, big man! Well, come on! You gotta get that!
Your pivot foot!
Come on!
Your pivot foot!
Come on! You know, like I was definitely like the guy who like was really tall, and I wanted to be coordinated, but I wasn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, but I had like a real sort of like angsty relationship with hoops. I definitely loved it big time. And I mean, as a fan, I remember I got into it, like I kind of eased my way in with like the Magic Bird era, because I'm old. And I remember I have vivid memories of my dad watching like, the Celtics and the Lakers and stuff in the 80s. And then, then the Jordan era was like the great education for me, and we're also lucky, those of us who grew up with Jordan. I mean, it was just such a great era. So it really, that really ushered me into like the passion of it. The Dream Team was like my Beatles on Ed Sullivan moment.
No doubt. I gotta break in. Did you have the like the stickers to stick on your wall or anything? Cause I had Jordan and Mullen. They came in. This was like pre like big head stickers, but I had them on my ceiling. Jordan, Chris Mullins.
Oh yeah, I had so much Dream Team swag. I had the Dream Team cups from Burger King. Oh, yes. I had like 40 of those things. I think I gained 10 pounds, 20 pounds eating like Whoppers just to get the stupid cups.
Pre-diabetic.
I actually have some sweet Dream Team swag in the back there. But that was definitely my like Beatles, Ed Sullivan moment. And then I stuck with it. I mean, even through the early 2000s, where the NBA was like in a dark place, I don't think I realized that at the time. Now looking back, you're like, that was kind of a bleak 10 years where like at post Jordan, basically like a real hangover. And I love it now. I think the league's in a really great place with the talent and the scoring, and positional variety is, I think, really important. I think anytime you have like the league to me is at its best when a guy like Steph Curry could win the MVP, or a guy like Joel Embiid could win the MVP. Like two like wildly different human specimens, like
that don't seem like they're from the same planet.
No, like if you were bumped into those two guys in the airport, you wouldn't think they played the same sport if you didn't know anything. Right. So to me, that's the beautiful thing about the game, is that it like invites all these different, body types and stuff, and skill sets and stuff like that. So, I love the game now. I'm a
Yeah,
I'm a huge fan.
Getting into that. So who do you follow in the NBA? What's your NBA team or a player of choice? Maybe some people just follow players these days.
Yeah, that's funny. I did that for a while. I mean, the Sixers are definitely my team. I don't live in Philly anymore. I live in North Carolina in Asheville, but I lived in Philly for 17 years, and it has such a strong identity. It's such a strong sports culture. It's not all about, snowballs at Santa Claus. There's, although some of it is like that, for sure.
We'll get into Ben Simmons here in a minute.
Yeah. But, I love Philly. I think it's the best city. And, I went to a million Sixers games, and actually the process era was so fun. That's kind of the irony of the process is that like they tore the team down, and they tore the team down to such a degree that the league had to step in basically and be like, you can't really do this. You have to like be more competitive. And they installed the Colangelos, etc. But the irony of that whole thing is that like the process really like galvanized the fan base, because people like the thing that's fun is like absolutely no expectations for your team, like zero expectations. That is, so then like we used to go to games and like, if you won, your just mind would be blown, because you were just like, there's no chance we're going to win. And I remember going and we beat like, we had like a really good win, and everybody was like, you would have thought it was fucking Mardi Gras, the way people were partying. Or if you lose by 40, you're there for the t-shirt cannons and the nachos, and it's really fun. And then all of a sudden you start to exceed expectations. And that's the pinnacle of sports fandom, is when your team starts exceeding expectations a little bit. When you get heavy expectations and you start like underachieving, that's like a sad, there's some depression in there. So, so like the process really, really sucked me in. I loved it. I loved cheap tickets, all the random players, the whole nerdiness of like Sam Hinkie and all that. I was a huge fan. So, I grew up a Bullets fan, but now that I'm definitely like a Sixers.
Which Bullets teams then were you following? Like what era was that?
Like Gugliotta, George Mirasan, Chris Webber, John Howard, Calvert Chaney.
Mirasan's a great player for a kid to like, just like almost like a cartoon character.
Totally. In fact, I should have led with this, but my first real like hoops memory live was my dad took me to see Bulls Bullets.
Nice. And
we drove and like just to see Jordan. He was like, you got to see this guy. He's the best to ever do it. I mean, this was like 80s. So like hyper athletic Jordan. And I was like probably 8 or something. And all I cared about was Manute Bol. I was just like, holy shit, that's not look at that guy. He's like 12 feet tall. He weighs as much as me. I was like completely obsessed with Manute Bol. Because you're right. Like as a kid, you just can't believe there are people out there like that. And again, going back to like body, like the diversity of athleticism in the NBA, which I think is so cool. So, but yeah, I loved those Bullets teams. But then I became more Sixers as I lived in Philly, for a longer time. So,
well, I love what you said. You can see that a little bit even with the Rockets right now. They had won like one game, and now they've got like a 4 or 5 game winning streak, and people are like, wow, the Rockets are hot. Like they're still the worst team in the league, but it's all of a sudden it's like they've won a few in a row. Holy cow.
Yeah. And like, now I think fans are so smart now. Like people know that they're just like stockpiling assets and draft picks and shit. Like, I don't think that really had as much weight back in the day, but nowadays it's just like fans are aware of that stuff now.
Yeah. They're
just like, cool, get assets. And then if you win some games, they're just like, holy shit, I can't believe it. We didn't expect to win anything. So, I think there's like, a friend of mine recently like ranked the different types of like sports misery, and the worst misery is like very high expectations and then you don't meet them. Oh
man. Well,
that's the worst. So it's much worse than being.
So you've been both, right? Philadelphia 76ers in the process. And now it's like Philadelphia 76ers, all the expectations and assets. And like, what do we do?
Yep. Exactly. We went from like elation, like, hey, we're supposed to suck. And all of a sudden we're like a contender. And then we immediately just got crushed by like the weight of expectations. So but I love the Sixers. Even just how much weird shit has happened to us in the past 5 years is like out of control.
Unbelievable. With you said, the Colangelos who got installed because of the process, then also got ripped away because of a weird Twitter thing. And
the Twitter, the Markelle Fultz thing alone is like a documentary.
Crazy.
I mean, Embiid, people forget that Embiid literally sat out his first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Like didn't play a single game until his 3rd season. I mean, Ben Simmons sat out his 1st season. I mean, there's so much weird shit. This whole Ben Simmons thing, you know.
Yeah, let's go there. We have Ben Simmons. We could just go on that. Ben Simmons, go. What do you do right now?
It's so crazy. He's not playing. It's so wild that he's literally just sitting out kind of for no reason. Yeah. I mean, obviously there's a huge reason he doesn't want to be there. Right. And I think this is probably the biggest, it's certainly the biggest case of the yips in the NBA history that I know of anyway. Maybe as an NBA historian and basketball historian, you correct me on that.
Man, I think so. I mean, to have that one, it's compounded, right, by the fact that he had it, and then it's almost like his coach and the other best player on the team like turned it into granite, right, by going post conference and being like, yeah, that's what you did, you know, like it's one thing where you have it hanging out there and you're kind of like, oh yeah, you can kind of, the media is saying it, but now it's like, well, you guys, my teammate or my coach thinks that it's just a different level, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, although I've heard people say like, "Oh, they threw him under the bus." Like, what are you supposed to do? I mean, I'm definitely team Embiid on that. Like, Ben just, you know, it's tough. Obviously, we're talking about like a level of mental. We're talking about like a pathology where he wouldn't shoot. You know, you've had guys that like go cold, like Nick Anderson.
Yeah,
you know.
Example.
That's like the second biggest case of the yips I can think of, where he bricks 4 free throws and the Rockets win the title. And the next season, his free throw percentage, like
30%
drops by like
crazy.
30% or something. Yeah. So he obviously got like way in his head about that, but it wasn't like it's not like he would get to the free throw line and like not shoot.
Right.
He just was missing. Like Ben will not shoot. There's like no like someone could be like, "Hey, we'll give you, you know, $1 million every time you attempt a 3-pointer." He'd just be like, "I'm good. Like I'll just pass." Like he just will not shoot. And that's a bizarre thing. And I'm sure his teammates like can only swallow that for so long.
Yeah.
Before they're just like, "Fucking shoot the ball, dude. Just please shoot it." You know,
yeah, what would be the band equivalent of that? I don't even know. It's crazy to even think about like real life equivalents to like what would it be like? It was a dunk that he passed up, and then to to follow it up with like, no, I got to get out of, like, I don't know what how a different situation I guess changes it for him. I mean, I guess, you know, you got different teammates, but it doesn't really change what you have to do. You know, that's the weird thing about it. Like you're still gonna have the same job when you go to the different team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the band metaphor would maybe be like, you've got a big solo at the end of the set and you just like, don't play, I guess, you know, you're just like,
just the drums or just the drums and the bass.
Yeah, exactly. I mean that, and then the show, something like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, like clearly he needs to like go up out into the desert and do like ayahuasca or something and like find his, you know, find whatever deep, dark thing is within him and exercise that out. But, you know, he just doesn't, by all accounts, doesn't seem like a guy has any contrition and wants to like face up to that. He kind of just wants to posture as like, oh, I know nothing's wrong with me, you know, something's wrong with the team or there's something wrong with this situation, you know. But so it's a bummer. I kind of want him gone. I was like an apologist for a long time.
Yeah.
Because he is really like,
he's
God,
good.
Man, when he was on fire, like if you watch the right game with Ben, you're just like, this dude is one of the 10 best players in the league because he's just like so dominant on defense. You know, he's about as athletic as anybody in the league. For sure. Certainly end to end, like speed. Mm-hmm. His passing vision is ridiculous. But, and I've used this metaphor before with some friends, but like, it's like if you have a car that like you have like this really fast car, but it like can't go in reverse or something. Mm-hmm. You like, so you have like a brand new Tesla, but like there's no reverse function. And you're like, this car is incredible. Like it's fast as hell. Great. You know, like don't need gas, incredibly efficient. Oh, if you need to back up, you have to like get it towed. Or like you just can't. Or
you got to push it out. You got to push it, put it neutral and push it out.
Put it neutral and push it. It's like such a deficiency of such a basic function. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, you can have the best passing vision in the world, but like passing in a vacuum doesn't work. Like passing needs to be coupled. Like you have to have like gravity to pull guys towards you to then pass. If you're just going to stand, you know what I mean? Like passing needs to be coupled with some other skill, like some other scoring threat. Like you have to be an incredible driver, like drive and dish, or you know what I mean? But he's not much of a driver. He likes to drive into the paint and then like turn around and pass the ball to the perimeter.
Seth Curry loves him.
Seth Curry loves him.
Yeah.
But I'm not, so I think his passing is like, his vision is crazy, but like he can't really, his vision doesn't really work very well because he can't fucking draw the defense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
there's two things there, right? There is that's what you love about basketball, right? Is that it exposes everything. Like there are other sports that you can just do one thing really well and that's it, you know, but basketball, you have to do everything or and even if you can't, whatever you can't do will be exposed. Like Seth Curry on defense, for instance, like it will find your weakness and highlight that one thing. And it's just, I think the frustrating thing about him is that he has the physical tools to do everything, even at some basic level. And for whatever reason, it's like you said, that mental hurdle. Well, what do you do? What do you do with him then? Do you trade him? Like, and if you do, what do you want as a Philly fan? Who are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up Maxey too and trade him off to somebody, or what would you do? Ideal world.
Ideal world, you don't get rid of Maxey unless you're getting like a really incredible player back. Like somebody who's probably not available. So, you know what I mean? Like if you're getting James Harden, if James Harden were available,
is he available?
Maybe. Yeah, probably not. But like last season, you know, hypothetically, we were in talks.
Man, they should have got him.
Yeah, to acquire him. And in that case, it's like, it's James Harden. He's like one of the best, probably 5 guys in the league.
Yeah.
You got to, you know, I love Maxey a lot. I'm higher on Maxey than most people, just because he's like, so he doesn't turn the ball over, which I think is so fucking rare with like a young guard. And he's got this floater. I think the floater is really an underrated shot.
Yeah, he's good. But, he's better than I thought he was too. I would have, you know, as a non-Philly fan last year, I would have been like, whatever you need to do, get rid of Maxey. It's fine. Yeah. But he's good.
Yeah, no, he's good. He's on a rookie contract. We're paying Tobias Harris like over $40 million a year. So that's crazy. Which is fucking nuts.
Crazy.
And so dumb. And we all knew it was dumb at the time.
Yeah.
And so in order to like subsist as a team, we need to have guys who are like wildly underpaid. We have Seth Curry, he's wildly underpaid. So we need other guys like Maxey. He's just underpaid. He's on a rookie deal. So we need a few of those dudes. We can't have everybody
at max.
You know, we can't have like Damian Lillard and Joel Embiid. It's like you can't have guys all making 30 to 40 million.
Yeah.
So
is that who you want?
I don't know.
Damian Lillard, you said
it. I hate being like I guess this is like my weakness. I just tend to like expect him. I'm like expecting him to really drop off. And he's got this, he was really, I don't know if you watched the Olympics.
Yeah.
He was bad, like really bad.
I know.
And I know he was like injured, but I watched the Olympics. He was terrible. I've watched him this season. He's been terrible. Yeah. I know he's got an abdominal thing, but he's also like 31, 32.
I know he's right in that window where, gosh, I would be.
And he's so small.
I know.
So like when you're a little guy like that and you start to fade, it can be like a hard, precipitous like fall where all of a sudden you go from like Damian Lillard, probably for sure a top 10 guy, right? Or top 12. And then like if he loses a little bit, he could all of a sudden be like a top 100 guy.
Man.
You know, especially because he's like on defense, so he's just not a good defender. And he's not really he can create, but he's not like a prototypical creator. He's a guy who needs like volume shooting. So I don't know.
It's hard. But on the flip side, I watched the Philly game last night, and you've got Joel Embiid, who had 45 points and 15 rebounds. Great. And you're like, how much does he need? You know, like you don't maybe need that. If you just had Jimmy Butler right now instead of Tobias Harris, would you guys be the best team in the league? You know?
Dude, don't get me started. I was so pissed. We traded like We traded like some foundational pieces to get Jimmy Butler, and then just like let him walk because he didn't get along with Ben. And he didn't get along with Ben because he called Ben soft. It's like, guess what? He was fucking right. Ben is soft. So,
oh my gosh.
But you're right. I mean, you made an interesting point that like we might not need that much. But so I personally would like. So the rumor is that the Blazers offered CJ McCollum and like a first and a pick swap for Ben, and we said no, and we asked for 3 firsts and 3 swaps. So if they were to come back and be like CJ
2
and
firsts.
like two firsts, I would just be like, call it in. Like, let's do it. Like we can't waste this Embiid's prime like this. You know, you never know when that guy's going to fall or something and his like leg snaps. That dude falls more than anything.
I know.
I've lost years of my fucking life, like watching him fall and be like, oh, like being at games because I go to a lot of games and you just like he would just hit the. I was at one of his like first 10 games, when he ever played, and by the way, he was like immediately you're like, oh, that guy's gonna be like a Hall of Famer, like right off the bat. It wasn't like, oh, he's working his way into it. Like he was like didn't have his wind. He was clearly didn't know where to go. And it was just so obvious how good he was right off the bat. But he was just like diving out of bounds. I was just like, no.
Yeah.
So anyway,
this is me watching Derrick Rose play like 10 years ago. I'm like, every time he drove the lane, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to blow his knee out. He just moves too fast for a human.
Was this before he blew his knee out?
Yeah, this is before. Cause he always did those like drives, like so fast. And then he would like move laterally, like explode laterally. I'm like, that can't be good for your knees. And sure enough, it was one of those things, but it was so much fun to watch. And you're right. You just have to, you have to do everything you can to just go for it while you've got that guy. Cause they're just like supernovas and it won't last. It rarely does. Yeah.
So we have Ben Simmons who isn't playing. So like in a way it would almost be like just pure addition. If we were to get a guy like CJ, it's like, it's not like we're losing a guy who's contributing. We're trading a guy who's just hanging out in his mansion. So I would totally pull the trigger on that. Or I've heard like Buddy Hield and, you know, either Halliburton or Darren Fox.
Yeah.
I don't know if that,
I don't know.
I would love that.
The only thing that would scare me is that what's the identity? I don't know the Sixers well enough. Like, what's the identity of the team? You know, like the Lakers kind of played around with this. Like, they won the championship. Their identity is defense. Like, they're tough as nails defensive team. They win the championship with that. They mess around with that a little bit with, you know, bringing in Westbrook and shipping out Caruso, who I love on the Bulls. And, you know, it changes that kind of foundation to it. And now maybe they find it again, but maybe they don't now.
No, they're fucked. I mean, the Lakers are real bad. I mean, I've watched some Lakers and I was
you were in LA. Did you get to try to go Lakers game or anything?
No, we thought about it actually. Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole other conversation. Just like the COVID bubble thing for us is intense. But it's actually shitty. We got asked to ring the bell before a Sixers game. It's just like a dream of mine. Yeah. You know, because like the pre-show or, you know, thing or the pregame thing for the Sixers is like this really dramatic thing. Really, and they roll out this like Liberty Bell. And it's just an awesome moment. I was there when like Meek Mill rang the bell. He had just gotten straight out of jail and came straight to the game. He didn't go home. He just got out of prison and just came straight to the game. And then he rang the bell, and then the place was like so loud. Anyway, but we got asked to do that. It's like, it's tough. You know, I don't want to belabor the whole COVID thing, but it's just tough. Cause like if one of us gets sick and then we have to cancel shows, it's just like a financial, you know, wormhole, but the Lakers are real bad. I don't think there's any chance they win unless I mean, I guess you have Anthony Davis and LeBron. There's always a chance. Yeah. You get in the playoffs.
Yeah. Somebody gets hurt. You never know. Like Phoenix did not expect to be in the finals last year and ended up there. So it happens. Yeah. And I feel like the West is pretty open. Like I know that everybody right now would say Phoenix and the Warriors, but I don't feel like they're unbeatable. They look great right now. But I mean, at the beginning of the season, the Warriors probably weren't even thought of to be in. They're maybe a playoff team, and they're just playing great. So who knows? Some of that stuff is a little bit dicey. And one Curry ankle roll, and they're a different team. So you're always got a shot if you're in there.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool era we're in right now where, like, you know, the LeBron Warriors era, it was so inevitable for years there. Like, it was really sort of like, it really diminished the regular season, and it actually even diminished like the first few rounds of the playoffs, because we all just knew that the Warriors were going to roll, and maybe LeBron could, you know, and it was just sort of like this feeling of inevitability. And I would say probably like the Bucks have to be given the like championship belt as like probably the team favored to win.
Yeah.
But in no way am I expecting them to roll. You know, there's like probably five, and actually the Bulls are awesome.
Thank you. I didn't have to bring it up. I'm really excited about them as a Bulls fan.
Yeah, I think at first this season I was like, wow, this seems really fun. And like recently I've been like, shit, these guys are like actually really good. I mean, I don't know if I would use the term contender yet, but stranger things have happened.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. DeRozan looks awesome. Everyone poo-pooed that signing, but I, again, as a team that's been in the wilderness for a while, I'm like, who can ever? This is the flip side of the fandom, is like that you get too into like what's the cap number, or are they over the cap, or your team overpay. I don't overpay. Like bring in Damian Lillard and Tobias Harris and Joel. I don't care what the cap number is. Go bankrupt as an owner if I can win a championship.
Yeah, it's not your money.
It's not my money.
It's some really rich guy's money.
That's right. Yeah. So I'm super excited about watching him play. He's been a blast to watch. No,
I mean, it's kind of a cool identity. I mean, your three best players are all guys who've been kind of scorned. You know, Levine has definitely been like, oh, he's good. He's kind of empty stats. Can't defend. Then in the Olympics, he was fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Great. And I couldn't believe that his defense was like
kind of the really opposite of Lillard.
Yeah, it was weird. All of a sudden I was like, oh, he can defend. And then Lonzo, you know, was almost like labeled a bust coming in. Maybe not a bust, but certainly a disappointment. He was sort of just thrown into that Anthony Davis trade. And then DeMar DeRozan, who was just sort of like secondhand Kawhi, you know? So you have these three guys kind of coming together, and they play so well together. Seems really selfless. So I'm definitely, they're probably like my third favorite team right now.
Is LeVar Ball a modern day folk hero? He's got everyone crapped all over him. And then he's got a kid that's a number 1 pick, a kid that's a number 2 pick. They're both awesome. You know, like, I don't know. Like, I think he didn't, I think he doesn't get enough credit. Everyone's like, he's kind of a hot take master, but that seems kind of like the era too. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm rethinking my takes on him.
Yeah. You have to give him, I guess, some credit for getting 2 out of 3. And who knows, maybe LiAngelo or whatever is going to make a team one of these days. But I'm kind of just glad that he's not really, I mean, is he around? Do we see him still? I feel like I haven't heard him or seen him in a while, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah. I think maybe he did his job. I think he maybe he didn't even realize how successful he was going to be. He's like, wow, I did way better than I thought. I need to stop talking now.
Yeah. I wasn't being serious. Wow. Okay. Well, they actually are good. LaMelo is awesome. Yeah. They're fun. But yeah, Bulls, you must be excited, man. It's a fun, I have some Bulls friends, and I remember this off season, I was like, I don't know, like Vucevic, I'm not like a big Vooch fan. Not that I don't think he's necessarily bad, but I'm like, is he what is this guy like? What does he do for winning? I'm not sure, but he's been good, and like seems like his like ethos fits in, where he's not like, hey, I need more touches.
Exactly. Yeah. He's not the Dwight Howarding everybody. He's like, all right, I'm cool being third banana.
Yeah. And he can hit a 3, so he can like stretch it out, be a stretch 5 a little bit. So, you know, I feel like you might have a trade or two to make just to like around the edges, get some depth, you know?
I'm willing to give up Patrick Williams if someone's out there listening. I don't know who they would get for him. I do too, but like again, I'm all in. If you got a shot at a championship, I recognize like who's out there. Yeah. Maybe they jump in later for CJ if Philly's not willing to. Maybe they're just like, you know what, we're going for it.
Or, hey. Maybe you guys could have Ben Simmons. What if you had a guy in there who's super athletic and won't shoot?
Well, maybe.
What's that do for
you? We've made a deal. Yep. All right, let's get into music a little bit. I want to talk about, we're going to start with your EP because I've been listening to, you released the first song a couple of weeks ago, and the whole, we hit a little bit on the pandemic, but I think that it's an interesting time to make music, and it is like a very tranquil, I think, I don't know what you feel about it, but very tranquil, the first two songs now that I've heard. And it fits for what I needed during the pandemic, because it just felt like the fire hose of information and trying to sort through everything that was happening was intense. And so I'm wondering how you were able to maybe filter some of that out to let that kind of music come out of you.
Well, in my case, I feel like the music I make is always kind of really tranquil. And actually the way I made this record was kind of the same way I made all my records, because I'm pretty solitary with the way I make music. I will say that like my whole life, all I ever wanted was like a studio to myself where I could like endlessly craft music and not be bothered. And now I have that. And I like, definitely the pandemic, I was like, okay, actually I really miss making music. Like I had it and I loved, you know, I do still love like the feeling of being alone and cooking something up, but the years of it was definitely like, you know, music is communication, and it's meant to be, it's not something that takes place in a vacuum. So I actually vowed after I made this LP and this EP to never do this again. I was like, I'm never recording like a whole record on my own. So this EP, which comes out in a few days, actually, it is actually, it's kind of weird. These are the leftover songs from an LP that's coming out next year. So because of this crazy,
so you did it in reverse backup, almost.
I did it in reverse, and it was kind of weird. I don't know if you're aware of like the vinyl backup that's taking place right now.
I didn't know that, but it makes sense because everything else is backed up.
Everything else,
they're probably actually done. They're just on a ship somewhere in the port of Los Angeles.
Just doing circles.
Exactly.
So they're like, I finished my LP in like April, right before my son was born, and I was really stoked. It took me years to make it, and I was really proud of it. And I sent it to the label, and they were like, "Cool, this is great. We love it. We're putting in the test pressing. You know, it'll be out next year, next summer." And I was like, "What? That's next summer?
Wow.
like 15 months from now?"
Crazy.
And I was like so pissed. And they're like, "Yeah, I'm sorry. You know, there's nothing we can do." And I started researching it. It's like, yeah, this is like a thing, this vinyl backup. So, but I had all these extra songs, and I was just like, I really want to put something out. I just felt, I just need it for my own like sanity. I just worked for years. I can't sit on this for a year and a half. I can't do it. So he's like, yeah, we can put something out digitally. And so I just like threw the rest of the songs together. And actually the song you were talking about, the first single that came out,
give us a name. Give us a name for, and by the way, Dave records under the name Nightlands. So if you're looking it up on iTunes or whatever, that's how you can find it.
Yeah, so the first track that we released was called Hymn to Me. It's a cover song by this band Brinsley Schwartz, which is Nick Lowe's first band. It's like it's sort of a deep cut. Like, I don't think it's on Spotify. The original is not on Spotify. My version is on Spotify, but the Brinsley Schwartz version is not. I think you can find it on YouTube. But that's a song that I always wanted to cover. And as I was putting this EP together, I was like, I feel like I need one more song, just to kind of like, because it's these are the songs I cut off the LP mainly because they didn't fit together. They're like songs I liked, but they didn't really fit. So this is sort of an oddball collection of tunes, and I was just like, I kind of need one song to like, you know, I need like a distributor.
So you still think about it as a you're still thinking about the album as an album. Cause I think that's interesting too. Cause I watched that, have you seen the Beatles, Get Back documentary yet? Oh my God.
Yes.
I mean, we might need to get into that a little bit too, but I think it's fascinating to think about like the era. We talked about eras of basketball, but eras of music, because there was this like singles era in music, as I kind of think about it. And the Beatles almost invent this kind of album era where everything is cohesive. And I don't know, it's interesting to hear from you, someone who's living it, like if it's still an album era, or how you contextualize that in the era that we live in, since you can just cherry pick from anything.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I need to think of it like albums. Now, you raise a good point. Like, I don't know. I think probably the younger generation, and you deal with kids every day. I would be curious whether they consider albums something. I would imagine most of them don't.
Probably depends on their parents. Cool.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, I guess also, like, I feel like an album, it might still be in an album era if the album's good enough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, just because, I mean, I'm thinking of like the War on Drugs, which I play in, all of our albums, which I'm proud of all of them. They all have, like, if you look at the play counts on all the tracks, are all sort of similar. So it's pretty clear people are like putting the record on and just like letting it play through.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think if you make a really good record, people will listen to it, but there are so many records coming out now.
Yeah.
The bar is extremely high. You're competing with so many things, like there's just so much competition for people's attention. So to ask someone to be like, hey, I made a 13 track record, like, will you sit down and listen to the whole thing? It's like, you're asking a lot. I mean, that's why you try really hard, and that's why you spend years on it, to try to make it brilliant and complete and cohesive and stuff. But yeah, I mean, what people do with it, you don't get any say in that, know?
So you're talking about the EP, then it's kind of more one-offs, but then you feel like the LP, the album that's going to come out next summer, is more, you fit those tracks together.
Yes. Yeah. Like, for instance, the LP, I spent a lot of time like sequencing it, and I cut tracks off because they just didn't fit. So with this EP, it was actually kind of fun. I'm proud of all the songs on the EP, but it's sort of like an oddball thing. It's sort of a collection. I did not spend a lot of time sequencing this EP. It was definitely like, I let the label do it. Actually, I was like,
really?
Just do it. I was like, just do it however you want to do it. Which I never would do. It was actually kind of a fun exercise for me in like not being, cause I'm very circumspect with every aspect of record making. But this was one time where I was just like, we had tight deadlines. I was gearing up to do all this War on Drugs, like tour prep, and I just didn't have a lot of time. I was just like, yeah, whatever, like, do that. And we just used one of my photos. I do a lot of photography stuff, like use one of my photos for the cover. It was like, boom, 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 let's do it. So it was kind of nice. I think EP has like it just sounds, it's like preseason. It just doesn't sound like a big deal. It's like, yeah, put in the bench guys. Let them run. Let him run the play. It's fine. Let him run the point guard.
Let's see what we got out here.
And it can be great. And, and I think some of the stuff on the EP is like some of the best stuff I've ever done. So there's a lesson in there about like maybe being looser. So
letting go, huh?
Yeah.
A little bit. Realizing that people are going to interpret it for what they want. You might not even realize it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you mentioned the War on Drugs. Let's talk a little bit about that, because I don't even know where to start here, because you guys have had so much coming out. You've got a new album, an LP that's come out, I Don't Live Here Anymore, and you play bass in the band, and you've been in the band for a long time. What's been the experience like? Because I think this, for me as a fan of the band, has been again like super exciting, because there's so much. It's been a few years since you had an album out, and there's like live stuff that's been on Jimmy Kimmel or different YouTube platforms. You guys have something that's live streaming. I think tomorrow or the next day. That's that you guys filmed overseas or something like that. Did you guys film that overseas somewhere?
We filmed that. No, we filmed that in LA. At this Ukraine. Yeah, it was
the Ukrainian. That's why
Ukrainian
I'm confused.
Society. But that's going to be really cool. I'm very excited for that. I mean, the experience in the band. You mean overall in my whole time?
I know. I don't even know where to start. Like, so for people who don't know, since we're kind of crossing crossing things over here with basketball culture and music. Give us like what's the band like, or how did you get involved with it? And then we'll talk a little bit more about the new album, since that's maybe the most out there, easiest to access right now.
Yeah. Well, War on Drugs, band from Philly. We formed in Philly in around 2005, 2006, I guess 2006. I mean, I have been in the band almost since the beginning. Adam Granduciel is the lead singer, primary songwriter, and he formed the band. And we met through, we had like a really shitty job. We worked together. You know how it is when you're like, you have a really shitty job, and it's like also maybe the best time of your life.
Oh, man.
You look back when you're like in your 20s, you don't have, everybody's broke. And we definitely were like living this sort of utopian, have no money existence in Philly. And the band, we've had a really unlikely rise, because it was like every record we put out, like the first record we put out was like well received by a few people, and we would tour a little bit, and we're playing very small shows. People would always come to the shows, but not very many. Bars, essentially, small clubs. And then we put out another record, and things started building, and every record has been like a little bit bigger than the last, I guess. So, now we're like doing well as a band, and we're all in our 40s. So it's strange.
Yeah.
It's strange to be like kind of having our moment now. Yeah. And the band has been around for over 15 years. And we all have like kids, and we're old and grizzled.
Talking about the NBA on podcasts,
Yeah, I'm essentially like Udonis Haslam, getting like, hey, you made your first All-Star team. Like, what?
What?
Like, been in the league for fucking 18 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like we're kind of I think if you track our trajectory, it's sort of unusual, but yeah, we're just ultimately like a group of friends. We're just all really, really tight. I mean, that's what happens when I've spent more time before the pandemic. I had spent more time with my band probably than anybody in my life. Yeah. Save my parents, including my wife. I mean, now with the pandemic, we're with years together, I think maybe that's not true
it's adding
anymore.
up.
Maybe that, because like, as when you get married and like you both work all the time, and I would work by going away for months at a time. Right. So, but yeah, we're a really tight group of friends. And there's a lot of basketball talk. I'm probably the biggest basketball head. But there's also a lot of basketball analogies. I mean, the band unit lends itself so well to analogizing with an NBA team, because it's all about cooperation, and how you fit together. And there's a reason the Bulls are doing well, because those personalities seem to be meshing.
No doubt.
So,
yeah, I could tell you guys were NBA heads. I think the first time I realized is that you had the kind of satirical NBA logo with Adam's silhouette rather than Jerry West. I was like, someone in that band's got to love the NBA, because that's it was
actually originally me. Yeah. That T-shirt original design was me, and I just remember being like, nobody wants a T-shirt with a bass player on it. Like, can we just change that? And then they changed it, and then we sold a lot of those. I think.
I bet.
Somewhere I have a picture of Patty Mills wearing that shirt on my hard drive.
Yes, he would. That's great. Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the new album. I want to know, here, it sounds a little bit different. You mentioned the band's been around for a while, but I do feel like that the sound has evolved. I mean, I've seen you guys live several times, so I think of you a lot as a live band. I know that Adam writes some of the stuff on his own, but I think it's evolved into, as much of a collaborative process, at least from what I've been reading, as it ever has been. And I'm just wondering what your guys' inputs were for the new album. I know my wife said, she gave it a compliment. She said that it sounded like if John Hughes were still making movies, this is what might be on his soundtracks. Just like so much space, but the words are more forward too now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I love the new record. I'm very proud of it. As far as input, it's weird. I think I heard it might have been John Oates from Hall & Oates once said that he was like, I'm simultaneously the most underrated and overrated musician because he's like overrated because it's Hall and Oates, like they're equal, but it's also like underrated because people don't really know what he does in the band.
Like
he's just sort of like, what does John Oates do? I don't know. Like he doesn't sing lead.
Yeah.
So in a way I feel like kinship with that statement. Whereas like sometimes I feel like my role in the band is overrated because truly Adam is a total visionary as far as what he wants for everything and every aspect of the recording and everything. He's just that's like one of the most attractive things about like working with him when I first met him is he's just like absolute like tunnel vision on what he wants. I mean, there was no just like, I don't know, what do you guys want to play? Like, should it sound like this? Should it sound like, it was just like always just like, I mean, he was just speeding down the metaphorical highway towards this dot of light in the distance. And if you want to come along and hop in the car, cool. Like you can help, fuel up the gas tank when we stop, but like he knows where he's going and he always has. So in a way we're a little overrated because it's like the War on Drugs is a band and like it's like, no, it's definitely, and he writes the songs completely. I mean, we'll help him a little bit. And then like, there's been some pretty important like co-writing moments, but like, it is truly his band. Yeah. However, I feel sometimes underrated because like of all the things that we do behind the scenes, to make the gears turn and what a group effort it can be to make a record and how much like of yourself you put into it, like how much I care about, I've given like my adult life to this band, completely. I've spent the prime of my life, the entirety of the prime of my life, pretty much. Yeah. Like playing Adam's songs and gladly, like I have no regrets. Like it's been a worthwhile enterprise. So if that makes it's like kind of a long-winded way of saying, I feel like what we do is sort of incredibly important, but also like don't lose sight of the fact like of who the prime mover is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right on. I was thinking about, again, it's on top of mind, but the Get Back documentary, seeing John and Paul literally just potentially replace George Harrison and be like, yeah, we'll just get Eric Clapton. I was just like, Clapton. Oh my gosh, they almost just replaced George Harrison in the Beatles. And then when they were brought in the keyboard player, they're like, should we add him to the band? I'm like, he was almost in the Beatles, you think about, because a band is a lot like, going back to the sports metaphor, you get that feeling when you're playing music where there's just that camaraderie and it's about the interplay of the people in the room together, and it can just change dynamics so quickly. I think that's a great way of explaining it.
Yeah. No, I love that doc so much. I've actually watched a lot of it twice. It really, it's like the best thing I've ever seen in my life, actually. I'm a huge, huge Beatles fan.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because I wasn't paying attention, but I don't think I was prepped. I had watched maybe a trailer for this, but I think my like preconception was like, hey, here's some new Beatles footage. And then like I started watching it, and like maybe 45 minutes into this, I was like, this is the Holy Grail. Like this answers so many questions I've had my whole life about the dynamic between these guys, because you listen to the Beatles your whole life and you're like, you start to know who writes what. And obviously you identify their voices, and you even start to identify like, oh, I think that's Paul drumming, or that sounds like Paul on piano, or that sounds like John playing that lead part. And then you really start to like get into it. And then you watch this doc and it's like, it's all there. Like, they didn't take George seriously, They
called his song simple almost, right?
Yeah, they sort of looked down on him. And, part of that is like, well, he hadn't written his masterpieces yet. Yeah. So it's easy for us to like sneer at that. It's like, well, George had taken he hadn't written many songs yet. They thought, he hadn't done All Things Must Pass yet, although he literally plays that song for them. And they kind of blow it off.
Yeah.
But
they're also Paul McCartney and John Lennon. Like, yes. So it's just like,
this isn't John Oates we're talking about here. These are these are fucking gods. So, I think they get a little bit of leeway. And I like to think if like the band had somehow stayed together, George's stature would have risen to be just about equal with those guys. Or maybe they weren't, maybe their egos were too big. They couldn't let that happen. I don't know.
It's crazy to think about. That's what was so hard for me is watching it. It just felt like a more modern era, being able to go behind the scenes, because I'm so used to it now. Even with you guys, I wanted to bring up, you guys have the podcast that's super high quality, and
new eps dropping soon.
Yeah, I know, no doubt, and it is so much fun for your favorite bands to be able to see behind the scenes and learn a little bit about how things came together. And it feels natural right now, but to go back 50 years and to watch them writing Get Back in front of you, and you're like, oh my gosh, this, just to see that interplay is just, it is incredible. It really feels like almost surreal.
Yeah. And on a flight back from Los Angeles, last time I was there like a few weeks ago, I downloaded this Tom Petty documentary, Running Down the Dream, which is it was one of my favorite music documentaries. It still is. It's great. It's long, goes through all facets of Petty's life and career. And I love it. I've seen it multiple times. But then as soon as I watch Get Back, that doc feels so passé to me because it's the whole format of like, it's like you're hearing like Dave Grohl say that he loves Tom Petty, and then hearing like, just, you don't need that shit. You just want to hang out. I don't need anybody telling me that how the Beatles influenced them. Nobody. We get it. We've read all the books. Like, just let me be in the room with those guys.
I know.
I love that there was never a single narrative, like narration or interview ever. It was just like 9 or 8.5 hours of, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that form of like the interview thing seemed passé to me instantly. It's almost like, it's ironic because it's like 50 years old.
Right.
It's like revolutionary. The Beatles are still somehow on the cutting edge. Like, 2 of them are dead and the fucking other 2 in their 80s. Like, and they're still like just blowing people out of the water. I know. So I'm glad you brought that doc up. It's been like a hugely important thing. And all my I have so many text conversations going on with like musician friends right now about this doc. And most of them were like, dude, did you watch this? Holy shit. Holy fucking shit. Like,
does it make you want to be more like open and transparent about it? Or is it, again, cause like the Beatles are such a comparison too, where you're just like, I don't even want them mentioned with me, and I get it, but they're almost out there anyway. So it's not a bad thing either,
Yeah, I mean, do you mean like, does it make us want to be more like access with cameras and stuff?
Exactly, yeah. Like the next time you make an album, would you be like, hey, let's just set up cameras, see what happens? Or you're like, man, that's crazy. That's crazy that they did that. Why would anyone want to do that?
I mean, I think it's good. We do actually have like a videographer, this guy, Daniel Fox, who's also a big hoops head.
Nice.
And he's like a good friend, and he's been traveling with us and coming around with us for years and videotaping. And like we have like thousands of hours of footage that we've never done anything with. But it does. It's like the Beatles expose themselves. They don't necessarily always come off in a good way, and that's part of the whole honesty of it. You know, there's some like ugly moments in there. There's also moments where like they're playing and they sound like a mess, which I was like so happy. Yeah. I'm like, oh, these guys are sort of human. Of course, then like the songs like evolve and
somehow come together, and they're on the rooftop. Come together, and oh my God.
And then you're like, oh, actually they are gods. Okay. Yeah. Not they're human, not they're gods. But I think it's good to document. I think we all, especially if you have control over it, if you have control of your stuff, it's just good to have the footage. I wouldn't want to like record us making a record and then give the footage to someone we don't know.
Yeah. If Peter Jackson is available, you'd be willing.
Yeah. If Peter Jackson or, enough time goes by. And I certainly wish we had footage of like when we recorded Lost in Dream, because it's clear that record means something to some people. Yeah. And that was a time where the band was in a very tense place. And there was no recording of any kind. at that time. Nothing. I don't think there's many photos. It's like that's an invisible time. Because I've been like documenting the band as long as I've been in the band. I take photos. I have hard drives full of photos. If I go back through, there's sort of like a gap during Lost in the Dream because it was just like not a real happy time. Adam was struggling with some stuff, and it's just you don't necessarily want to bust out like the camcorder, you know?
Yeah.
So
but like you said, maybe that's part of what was so difficult about it is that they were willing to do that, even though you could tell there was obviously tension there. I mean, Harrison quits the band, and it had to be. You can feel it in a way. It didn't seem as dramatic as as watching Let It Be, but you still know that if you're in the band and that happens, you're like, they're grappling with it in real time, and you're just like, oh God, for sure. What do you do?
Yep.
Well, let's wrap up. I so appreciate all the time that you've given this evening. But I'll talk a little bit about playing live, because I think that live music is such an interesting comparison too. And you guys are a studio band and make incredible studio records, but are an incredible live band too to go see. And like you said, you recorded some live stuff that you can watch online if you're still worried about the pandemic. And what's the name? I'm blanking on the name of the kind of live concert that you guys are doing. I know it's on Dream Stage, I think, it's the platform.
Yeah, it's just called Living Proof, which is one of the tracks on the new record, and I think it's going to be incredible. We pride ourselves as a live band for sure, and we've toured a lot, and I think. Another interesting thing about our band is that I don't think we were very good live for a while. We had certainly moments in the early days we were kind of a wild band in the beginning. It was very like loud and experimental, and we were definitely finding our sea legs in the early days. And it wasn't until we started playing like big rooms that everything, like the big sound that we were making, kind of fit in the room. We would like play like a small bar and have 16 amps on stage, and everybody in the crowd would be like, "Oh,
32 pedals."
Then, like a million pedals. And then when we started playing bigger rooms, like it just all started to click. I still remember like the first festival we played, and we crowd was like stoked. And I was like, what? It was like shocked. And I was like, oh, actually our sound works in this scenario.
Interesting.
And over the years, we added band members, and then when Lost in the Dream came out, we like really solidified our lineup. And it's just so different. Making a record and then going and playing the record live couldn't be more different experiences. It's very, 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 very different. I've made this metaphor before, but like making a record is kind of like science. Mm-hmm. And then playing the record is like sex. Like they're just not, just because it's just the science is just like very like you think about it for I don't know, and you tweak it and you think about it some more, and then you take it and you listen to it, and then a month goes by and you think about it and you do a little overdub. But then when you go play it live, it's just like no, you're just reacting. You're just like you have no time to think. It's very like
mistake, you got to move on.
Exactly. You just pretend that didn't happen and move on. No, but it's just very like sensual in like a sensory. I mean that in a sensory way.
Yeah.
And you just like it's just boom fast, and you're just going through it, and it's all like adrenaline and emotion. There's a lot of emotion and stuff happening. So they couldn't be more different, and I like them both actually a lot. And I guess the most fun thing is you just get to spend a lot of time with your friends, and just have the camaraderie. Because I don't know how old you are.
42.
Oh, cool. I'm 41.
Yep.
When you get into be our age, like the kind of friendships you have become kind of fragmented. Mm-hmm. You're like, oh, let's have a beer, and then you talk for a little bit, and then you see him a week or two or a month or 3 months later. Or maybe you're texting, but that like friendship you had when you were like 22 or 16, where you're like, let's stay up all fucking night playing Mario Kart. We're going to smoke pot, and we're going to stay up till the sun comes up, and then we're going to go to Denny's, and then we're going to laugh our asses off. It's like that, like kind of friendship that is so pure, like that is kind of gone by the time you're our age, especially if you have kids. I don't know if you have kids. But like, that's just over. You're just like, hey, maybe I'll talk to you for 6 minutes or something.
How about dinner next week?
How about dinner? And like, like you might be on your phone half the time or whatever.
Everybody the last 2 years too, it feels like just talking to anybody. It just feels incredible.
Yeah, actually, and the pandemic has just heightened this. So like going on tour is really like kind of being 16 again, where you're just like, hey, let's spend 6 straight weeks on a bus together.
Yeah.
So that's the best part.
Amazing. All right. Last couple here. What tricks do you use? This is getting back to the sports analogy to get the energy up or bring the focus. Cause I can imagine, I'm projecting onto you guys that there are off nights, right? You show up in a different city and you want to bring that same energy. And I think that's analogous to an athlete, bringing it every night. And the best ones are figuring out ways to show up and continually kind of reinvent a reason to enjoy that moment, that camaraderie on stage.
That's a great question. Some tricks. I mean, one trick is like, don't get too drunk. Like as you get older, like, cause that's a thing. It's really easy.
You hear that with a lot of bands. Yeah.
I mean, we're like, I'm drinking a beer right now, which is ironic, but like as a band,
you can drink. It's fine.
I feel like I can sip this. I haven't even had a third of this beer, but like we don't drink very much or smoke pot or anything. We're like a pretty sober group of dudes now. And I like it that way. And it's been kind of necessary for us to stay as a band and like be professional. You start playing bigger shows too. It's just like, you have to like bring a degree of professionalism and stuff. So we don't drink as much. You try to stay in good shape. Sometimes if I'm like, oh, I feel dead before I go, I'll like jog around or do push-ups. We travel with like a record player in our green room. It's like a road case with like a record player sound system. And so it's sort of decadent, but it's actually sweet. We'll like pump music backstage.
That's cool.
We have usually a jam rig with us backstage, like drums and bass and some amps, just so we can jam backstage. But if I'm on stage and usually you don't need it. If you get out there and the crowd is happening, you're good. Like they give you the energy. But if you get out there and the crowd is like, you see like someone yawning or something, which is like, that's the worst. It doesn't happen often, but it's been known to happen. I'll just like close my eyes and just like focus on what you're hearing and not what you're seeing, or not trying to think about someone looking at you. Cause it's really, sometimes you step on stage, you're just like, holy shit, there's people looking at me.
Right.
So you just close your eyes and just try to focus on the sounds and the music and just try to lose yourself a little bit in there.
That's great. I love hearing that. And I think that even at a concert, I mean, one of the ways to really connect with the band and even the people in the crowd is to just close your eyes and just kind of feel that kind of oneness. There's not a lot of places that you can be in this world where you can, all have almost the same experience at the same time.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So that's awesome to know that that's the same on the stage as it is in the crowd.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and there's different philosophies on this. I know people who are wonderful performers who are like, they're like, you need to fucking connect with the crowd and like fire them up and like, that and like somehow like forcibly connect with them through like, there's all sorts of stage theatrics and like crowd interaction techniques. And we're not like that. I think we're more of the philosophy of like, if you occupy a world on stage that looks compelling, you want to invite people into your world instead of like trying to go into their world and like grab them and like smack them around and get them to like pay attention to you. It's more just like try to create a Zen place and be like, come into this place, come here. This is fun. We're like meditating. We're listening to music. So, but there are different philosophies, David Lee Roth would just do a split and like jump into the crowd or something. And
If you've got Mick Jagger's hips, you got to work those things, right?
There's different ways. We don't do that, but
Well, Dave, I just want to thank you again for your time tonight.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure, man.
If you're willing to, we'll have to get you back on after you've got some league pass time on the road, maybe towards the playoffs and see what Philly's at. I know it probably feels like they're a little out of it right now, but they're only like 3 games from where the Bulls are at. So they'll be all right after that Ben Simmons trade for Damian Lillard. We'll check back in.
Maybe the game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, Bulls Sixers. We'll have to do a pod or something.
That's right. We didn't even get to talk coffee either. We'll have to get into that because you're a big coffee head too. To really,
for sure,
really put the people to sleep talking coffee.
Yeah, I know, right? We'd lose everybody. We'd save it for the end.
That's right.
Cool, man. Well, this has been a real pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
For sure.
Do it again.
Good luck out on tour too, and we'll be checking in on that live concert. I can't wait to see that.
Cool, man. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast. If you haven't already subscribed to the podcast, make sure you do. And while you're at it, leave us a rating or review. 5 stars only, like the basketball camp. We also have links to all of 19.9 social media so you never miss a release. Until next time,